trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Whole hard in the trenches. Ask a nigga what he benching. Triple digits, nigga, don't forget to mention. Don't forget I got memories, dead stain the whole room if I let them bleed. Shit was dark, I let this little light of mine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast. As always, y'all know who it is. It's Mual, aka Let Mual Tell It, all that good stuff. Let's go through the administrative things right quick before we get started, because we do have we got to work around with our schedule today. So let's go ahead and get through administrative things. Twitch. If you're watching right now on Twitch and you are not following, make sure you go ahead and hit that follow button. This is a followers only chat. You can always be a part of the show each and every day that we stream. Just gotta follow and be a part of the community in that way. YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube and you like the content, all that good stuff, and you like the content, make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you stay tuned with the channel. We got content dropping almost every day except for Saturday and Friday. Those are made for football, actual football games. And then podcasts, iTunes, Google, all that other stuff. If you're listening on the podcast and you like the content, again, same thing. Subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. Help us out. All those good things. So now that that's out of the way, we typically do the interviews at 7:30, but Ross is a busy man. He got his own thing going on, so we gotta respect the guest in his time. AJ just joined in with us too, but he's setting up right now. So joining us to get this preview done is Ross Jackson. He's joining the Trap or Die podcast. Ross Jackson covers the New Orleans Saints for SB Nation's Canal Chronicles, but also is the host of the LockedOn Saints Podcast. He made it clear, everybody. I talked to him about this Giants game before we got started. He made it clear. This ain't his team. This is the team that he is covering. He told me. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, Ross, how are you feeling tonight? Is everything good with you, boss?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I got to tell you what I mean by that is that I was not out on the field contributing to what happened. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I will say this is the team that I grew up with, that I grew up rooting for, and that I still root for to this day and have the great pleasure of covering. But the product that was on the field, particularly quarters 4 and overtime of that New Orleans Saints loss to your beloved New York Giants, or hated, if you will, New York Giants. That's not the team we're used to seeing out there.
Yeah, so it was rough, man. So like, and from my perspective, first and foremost, the first thing you can know about me, Ross, is I am a gambler. I did take the Giants on the 7, but I had no idea that they was gonna win the game. With that being said, in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned, I think y'all were up 11 points. So I thought I was about to lose. I thought about to lose the bet. And then all of a sudden, y'all are in overtime. Just walk us through that. Walk us through that game, because I think it kind of plays in part what we can kind of see with Saints and heading into Washington this week. But we'll walk through this game and tell us what happened in that fourth quarter and in overtime type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one of the things that you saw kind of go wrong for the Saints is that they got up 11 points with about 8 minutes left in the game, and then they went about 3 possessions back to back without really throwing any passes. You had about one pass. Taysom Hill had thrown an interception at an earlier point. That they had a pretty nice drive to where Taysom Hill was able to run it in and score a touchdown. But between the time to where Taysom Hill threw that interception in the third quarter and then the drives to follow that touchdown, Jameis Winston threw a pass up until the 6-minute and 11-second mark. And so at that point, you're already watching the margin start to close. You saw blown coverage by Marshawn Lattimore with Saquon Barkley on the outside, where usually when you have a running back that motions over to the outside, the expectation is that they're there to help stretch the defense horizontally, but not necessarily be somebody that is going to attack vertically. So you saw him sit on the route and no help over the top, and Saquon Barkley was right there in the end zone for, I believe it was a 54-yarder, their second 50-plus yard play, 8th 20-yard plus play that was allowed in this game for the Saints defense, who hadn't allowed a 40-plus yard play. So you saw the defense kind of go the opposite direction that you're accustomed to seeing throughout, and then you saw the offense not be able to really keep pace or add to the lead, because an 11-point lead, just like Coach Sean Payton said and told us after the game, it's not enough.
Absolutely. So we're gonna circle back to Sean Payton. We'll circle back a couple things, but let's go ahead and get with the overall perspective of the Saints in 2021. The most obvious change that we can clearly see from a visible standpoint is the fact that Drew Brees isn't there no more, man. The absence of a future Hall of Famer and Drew Brees, from a standpoint of covering the team. First off, has it been weird? Just understanding that he's been around from a 15-year standpoint of having a franchise quarterback. And if it has been a little bit of weird in this first year, like how weird has it been in what ways, trying to understand the new structure or a different structure for the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, you're used to firing up week one every year and, getting your kind of fill of, which Drew Brees, all the Drew Brees narratives, whatever they might be, what record is he on pace to break at this point going into this season or this game, whatever, XYZ. So you're used to seeing that. But the thing that is kind of the most strange to see is just kind of trying to figure out where the leadership comes from for this New Orleans Saints team, because now it's coming from multiple spots as opposed to Drew Brees being the one that sets the tone and sets the expectation and standard of preparation, standard of play, standard of practice, all of that, all throughout the season. So you're seeing now guys like Teron Armstead step up over on the offensive side, and Marshawn Lattimore, Malcolm Jenkins, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, of course, over on the defensive side. So you're seeing sort of a wealth and a share of the leadership roles in terms of the expectations for this team, as opposed to it simply being one player that's kind of at the top, and that is the sole leader there. And, I think if Jameis Winston is somebody that sticks around for a while for the Saints, that he certainly has the personality to lean in and get into that role. But is he going to be around? You don't know. He's really only on contract for this year. And in fact, the only quarterback that the Saints have on contract for next year is rookie Ian Book, who they drafted in the 4th round, which was a little bit of a surprise in the draft this year.
Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, BQC, I appreciate the subscription, man. I appreciate you rocking with us, the Trap or Die podcast, for however much time you've been around, man. I definitely appreciate it, though. So you mentioned Jameis Winston, and what's going on, AJ? You mentioned Jameis Winston, and now I'm not going to necessarily say that he's trying to fill in Brees' shoes per se. That will be a very ignorant statement of me to say, like, right now, but just trying to change the narrative of his career, and then develop into a franchise quarterback for New Orleans. How, in your opinion, has he been coming along to this point?
I think so far so good. I mean, you've seen 2 interceptions that he's thrown so far, and that was the big question mark around him, was sort of this, what I thought was unnecessary 30 interception narrative that he picked up after that 2019 season, which was out of the ordinary and obviously an anomaly. We don't see that type of interception production from quarterbacks around the NFL, let alone Jameis Winston in the previous few years of his career, where he averaged around 14 interceptions, which is around where Drew Brees also averaged early on in his gunslinger days with the New Orleans Saints, where they would attack a little bit more vertically. We have, however, seen this Saints offense still stay pretty condensed, and so it'll be interesting to see if they get a little bit more aggressive over the top. We saw them start to get to that place against the New York Giants this past week, to where they were taking shots downfield, picking up some of these bigger plays and these chunk yard plays in the passing game. Curious to see if that continues and how they continue to open that up, or if they wait until Michael Thomas and Eric McCoy and the offensive line is healthy and all these other players that they're missing that are a part of that offense that aren't there right now. If they wait until those players are back to go ahead and establish their identity as a vertical attacking team, that will also look to set the tone running the ball. So far, running the ball has been where they've gone in terms of giving that support to Jameis Winston. Over 170 rushing yards in 2 out of 4 games so far this season, over 133 times out of those 4 games so far. So I think that you've seen him aided by a run game, not necessarily aided by as strong an offensive line as we expected coming in. Some of that has to do with injuries, with starting center Eric McCoy out, and now having lost Teron Armstead, their star left tackle. So we'll see how they continue to develop this game around Jameis Winston with those new injuries and trying to sort of build an offense around a temporary offense until you get all of those pieces back. So I think what we're seeing here before the bye week is still a little bit condensed, still a little bit more game manager-y, which is what Jameis Winston said he wanted to be coming in. But I think that begins to open up a little bit more after the bye week once they start to get healthy again.
Hey, let me ask you a question, Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Michael Thomas ever comes back to play for the Saints again?
Yeah, he'll be back probably, I would expect no later than the Halloween night game or the Halloween day game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All of the stuff that took place over the course of the offseason was, not great. Don't get me wrong. But this team and that player, he's been around the facility. He has been with the team. He's traveled with the team a couple of times or come when they're close to where he's rehabbing. He's been with the team so far several times this season. So I expect that he'll be back once he's healthy and eligible to return.
Okay.
So, the reason why I was getting a little excited right quick is the fact that Jameis Winston is my guy. I've been rooting for him for a minute, man, and I obviously I'm kind of torn because it's like I want him to succeed, and then it's like do I want him to continue to succeed or like to take a week off for things like that? That's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like I don't want people to think that I'm wrong in my opinion with Jameis Winston.
Right.
But you mentioned the coaching standpoint and how he's being managed in game. And I said we were going to circle back to Sean Payton. The original question that I had was about how Sean Payton handled the decisions, the late game decisions in the heat in the moment and things like that, and how things transpired post game as well. You kind of spoke on that. But in terms of just managing the offense, you have injuries now, but you also have a quarterback who has that potential to kind of sling it across the field, but you kind of want to temper him because it may expose him to the turnovers and things like that. How can you, from a coach's standpoint, obviously, how can Sean Payton continue to grow and I guess kind of understand who Jameis is without kind of shackling him in a sense? I hope that's getting across properly.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think it comes down to execution, and in order for the execution to be appropriate, these things have to be worked, and these things have to, come together in practice. So it comes down to the preparation leading up to the game, to where, this is the shot that we're looking to take. If it's not there, then you're going here, and making sure that he understands his options and progressions. Jameis is a quick reader of the field. He can get through a full field progression and still get back to the first read if he needs to in time. He does a very good job checking the ball down so far in this New Orleans Saints offense. Maybe sometimes unnecessarily so, right? Sometimes he's a little quick to go to that check down now that has kind of become a part of what they're focusing on with him in terms of not trying to force things in the intermediate area, which is where he has thrown the majority of his interceptions over the course of his career. Not even deep, right? He's actually had really good deep ball accuracy, or at least putting passes in places where only the receiver is going to be able to get to them. So I think that they'll eventually get comfortable allowing that to be more a part of the offense. I think that this idea that they are, risk averse isn't surprising. We expected very much that this team was going to be majority calculatory. I don't want to say conservative, because conservative is just what we call teams doing things that we don't like. Yeah. But, like the idea of them being a little bit more calculatory, a little bit more methodical with him is something we expected to see, particularly without Michael Thomas on the field and then the injuries to the offensive line. So I do expect that you'll see those things sort of elongate in the offense over the course of the season as all that comes back together. So I think Sean Payton has done a good job managing him thus far. I would even say sometimes maybe he's still a little bit too reserved, but it's not for lack of trying. I mean, they're calling the shot plays. The shot plays are there. It's just that sometimes the receivers aren't open, or they've been dealing with immediate pressure. The interior offensive line has been a big deal, which is something I would definitely keep an eye out on in this game up against an extremely talented front seven in Washington on the defensive side. So that's a huge portion of why sometimes you're seeing him check down quickly, is because he's anticipating, or there is that pressure immediately up the middle. So some of these things just have to get better in concert with one another. Then you'll start to see a little bit more comfort towards that area of the game. But it's going to take not only coaching from Sean Payton, but it's going to take all of these units and their respective coaches getting them prepared and ready to be able to produce at that level.
Okay. So for the offense, just in general, as we actually previewed the Washington game, how do you anticipate? Excuse me. Actually, the first part is Alvin Kamara. I actually almost skipped over that. We know who Alvin Kamara is. We know how dangerous he is as a playmaker for New Orleans offense. He didn't have a pass target at all against the Giants. For whichever reason that may be. If he said anything, what did Payton have to say about how that transpired throughout the game? And then secondly, how do you anticipate Kamara to have or to be utilized against the Washington football team on Sunday?
Yeah, so what Sean Payton mentioned was that their second running back in their rotation, Tony Jones Jr., got hurt in this game. He ended up having to be carted off in the middle of the game. He's going to be expected to miss about 3 to 4 weeks at this point, maybe even a little bit longer with his injury. And so once Tony Jones Jr. was no longer in the game, then all of a sudden they had to give those carries to somebody. And so all those carries ended up basically going to Alvin Kamara, even though Dwayne Washington did get a little bit involved in the game plan. He's more of an emergency running back than he is a running back that is usually there and producing on game day like Tony Jones Jr. often is. So a lot of the runs that they would usually call for TJJ, they called for Alvin Kamara, and so that got him more involved in the running game. Alvin Kamara has now reset.
26, right? 26 carries.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly right. And he has actually, over the course of the last 2 games, reset his career high in carries. So he had about 24, 25 up against the Patriots, and he had the 26 here against the Giants. And a lot of that simply had to do with them needing to be able to produce with a running back that was actually practicing those zone reads, practicing the zone blocking scheme that they like to use. So they ended up kind of eliminating his passing role during the game so that he didn't get up to 30, 40, 30, 35 touches in the midst of the game.
So for the passing game outside of Kamara, and because obviously, like I said, he does both for New Orleans, passing and running. Who has been Winston's favorite targets with Thomas's absence and Tre'Quan Smith's absence to this point? Like, how has he been able, or who has been his go-tos at least until these guys get back? Who's been Winston's go-tos?
Yeah, I would say the player that he finds in the end zone the most is tight end Juwan Johnson, who is a second-year tight end that transitioned from the wide receiver position. He actually came as an undrafted free agent last year at wideout and then transitioned over to tight end. So I would say in the red zone, that's one of his favorite targets. He and Marquez Callaway have had a really fantastic chemistry. Marquez Callaway, though, has struggled to get open I don't want to say often, but often enough that there have been some deterrents about going his way every now and then. But you saw him with a big 58-yard catch and run in this game against the Giants. Yep. So maybe that connection is getting a little bit more comfortable. But I'll tell you, the most reliable offensive weapon that they've had so far in the past game has been Deante Harris. Deante Harris doing a really great job, and he runs all of their preferred schemes really well. I think eventually you're going to see them add a bit of an option curl route for him that we would see that would be run by guys like in the past, Willie Snead, Lance Moore, Darren Sproles, those types. And so I think you'll see his role continue to expand, especially once Tre'Quan Smith as well as Michael Thomas come back and they can utilize Deante Harris a little bit more in the slot as opposed to at the Z. And so I think that you'll see his role continue to expand. But Deante Harris has probably been the most reliable player for the Saints as a pass catcher so far this season, outside of Alvin Kamara.
I think it's safe to say that Taysom Hill, for those who are listening, quarterback Taysom Hill, would be an X factor for the New Orleans Saints. But if we just had to ask formally, like an official question, like who are the X factors that Washington fans need to look out for the Saints offensive side of the football? Who are these players? Especially, again, you mentioned some names, but especially since Michael Thomas is out, the bigger name that people know. And Alvin Kamara, we know he's going to be playing, but who are some of those X factors on that side of the ball for the Saints that Washington fans need to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think Deontay Harris is the biggest one that I would highlight, just because of his usability in the passing game, but also his ability to contribute in the return game as well. The Saints have been most effective so far this season when they're continuously starting with favorable field position, and Deontay Harris helps to set that up in the return game. So, and of course the defense helps with that as well. But in the return game, Deontay Harris plays a huge role in that. He did not have a very successful day as a returner against the Giants. He'll try to have a more successful day against the Washington football team, although WFT has been really good in their special teams unit so far, both as returners and in coverage. Benjamin St. Juste in particular in coverage is somebody that I really, really like for them. And so I think that they've done a good job there. And so that will be a big part of the game that I would keep an eye out on as a Washington fan, is to see where does that starting field position go. The Saints over the past 2 years are about, I think it's 9-0 whenever their average starting field position is better than their own 30 throughout the course of
that is
a
game. Crazily random stat.
It's the huge. They love their field position game, man. They love their field position game. And that's over the last 2 seasons that they've been like that.
So, Ross, what the hell makes Taysom Hill so special? Like, So we've seen quarterback like Denard Robinson was one person who the Jaguars labeled as an offensive weapon. They didn't even give him position. They just said, you're an offensive weapon. To a degree, it worked out. You know, it didn't really fully work out as they planned, especially where they drafted him. But Taysom Hill is doing a lot of things for the Saints over the years, and I haven't paid attention to all their games this year, so I don't know how he's being used. If he's still being used in the exact same way as years past, but what makes Taysom Hill so special, and how are they using him this year? Is it the exact same? Because I've seen him line up at tight end, return. He's had some pass catches. He lined up obviously in the backfield as a thrower. All these things. How are they using him, and what makes him so special?
Yeah, I mean, he's a unique piece, man. I mean, you know, and it's the combination of his speed, his athleticism, his strength, all of these things where, you know, you get the guy rolling downhill and all of a sudden he's running over linebackers, or he's running through defensive backs or whoever it is that gets in his way. He's played 22 snaps so far at quarterback. He's lined up in the backfield 11 times. He's played in line as a tight end 24 times, and he's been in the slot 20 times. So he's been all over the place. And then that's not even counting out wide, where he's actually lined up out wide as an X or a Z receiver 23 more times. So they're using him all over the place. And so no difference right now from what they've been using him, the way that they've been using him in the past, with the exception of that in the past, they would use him in, you know, punt and kick return coverage.
Yeah.
They don't use him as much there anymore. They've used him in punt coverage sparingly so far this season, but he has even been around for those snaps. They generally use him as an up back. And so, you know, his usage is all over the place still. It's still all over the charts. You know, he's thrown, I believe it's 4 passes so far this season, completed all but the interception that he threw, which was a big interception in that New York Giants game. So, you know, what it is that makes him special is that he's willing to go out there and compete whenever and however he's asked to do it. I mean, look, this is a guy that came as an undrafted free agent from, you know, Penn State, coming in, went to Green Bay, ended up being let go, and then finds his way to New Orleans and then sees his first snaps back in 2017 in punt coverage. You know what I mean? Like running down the field, making stops in special teams. And then now this season, he was engaged in a legitimate quarterback battle with a former #1 overall selection. Like, that's really impressive. And then he loses that quarterback battle and still comes out to play this role, and then, you know, scores 66% of the points that the Saints scored in that loss to the Giants. He was accounted for 14 of those 21 points. And so, I mean, his willingness to go out there and do whatever it is that's asked of him and compete at the highest level, regardless of how he's asked to do it, it's remarkable. And then so you add that drive, you add that motivation and willingness to his athleticism, his size, everything that he's got. It just makes for a special player.
AJ,
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead. No, I actually see Taysom Hill being an integral part of Sean Payton's game planning this week. If you look at the Washington football team and how they've been able to not stop these special type of talents. We just seen it with Cordell Patterson over the weekend, who lines up at wide receiver, running back. Even when we played the Giants, you've seen how they use the read option with Daniel Jones. Now you're talking about a more athletic guy who also has the ability to throw out of those packages that they have established in Taysom Hill. I think he's going to be the key factor, one of the key factors that they have to target on defense, aside from Alvin Kamara, who can get busy on his own. You know, at the end of the day, I'm nervous as a Washington football fan because I know that Taysom Hill has the ability to run those read options. And because you do have that ability, the defensive players are going to key in on that so much that they might be able to get something deep downfield to a Deante Harris or someone else and make a big play. And Sean Payton is one of the best offensive coordinator minds of all time. So I know he's seen the footage in the game tape, and he already knows how he's going to utilize Hill, you know, going into the week, especially how Cordell Patterson, I mean, he looked like he was back at Tennessee over the weekend.
Yes, bro.
Yeah.
Goddamn touchdowns.
Absolutely. It's an interesting thing. And I think, you know, another good thing to point out is that a part of the reason why Taysom Hill is so special is because of Sean Payton, right? Like that's what none of these other guys that didn't pan out. None of them had Sean Payton. Taysom Hill does. And I think that obviously makes a big difference too. And that's a really, really good observation because he is one of the best when it comes to scheming these players into being open. I mean, Taysom Hill is somebody that you can create mismatches with wherever it is that you line him up on the field. And if you put him under center, you change the defense, right? You've got more players coming up in the box. You're usually looking at the defense looking to close the middle of the field as opposed to going to cover 2 or cover 4. And so you can be more aggressive in the run game against cover, against, let's say, a cover 3 than you would be. And then you can attack more in the passing game with man beaters and crossing routes and things like that. The Saints really love their Yankee concepts, which will send one player on a post route and then send somebody else crossing the field and then try to hit them over in that intermediate left sideline or intermediate right sideline, depending upon where that receiver is coming from. And all that opens up once you're able to force a defense into man coverage. And that's a big part of what Taysom Hill does by simply being in the game. Effectively when he's under center, for sure, but also him being in the game, period. They want to get their best playmaker on him. So teams will change up personnel to try to get their, the guy that they feel would be the best at best matchup in defending Taysom Hill. They'll switch to a man look so that they can get that guy on Taysom Hill. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the Saints are able to take advantage of that by getting a mismatch elsewhere generated because the best athlete is occupied with Taysom Hill.
Well, look, put it this way, if y'all get that man concept the way y'all want and Kendall Fuller lines up on Taysom Hill, you probably win.
Oh, no.
The way things have been looking, you probably win. I'll tell you that right now, man. But because obviously we appreciate your time, Ross, and we haven't talked about the defense, so we'll be a couple quick questions on the defense right quick. And so one of the things that's always going to be the strength of the Saints is at least since 2017, because that's when things started to turn around for the Saints, at least on that side of the ball. The defense is always going to be there for New Orleans, regardless of what happens on the offense, the turnover in terms of personnel and stuff like that. The defense is always going to be there. 10th overall this year so far, 4th in turnovers forced. The Saints have been all in but one game this year, essentially, and that was the Carolina Panthers. What I guess is the biggest fact, because the pass game, just statistically, like I said, I haven't been able to see all the games, but statistically, the passing defense isn't that strong from the numbers standpoint. But what is going on in terms of that side of the ball? What has been able to hold things together? Is it the pass rush, just overall run defense, or literally like being able to force those turnovers? In your way to describe it, what has been the strength of that defense so far in 4 games in?
Yeah, it's funny because I think people are going to hear me say this and they're going to want to slap the hell out of me. But I think that, it's the secondary really has been the strength of this team. And I know it sounds ridiculous to say that in a game where you gave up 402 passing yards to Daniel Jones of all people. And I think that when it comes down to it, like that is an example of a bad game for this defense. There's no sugarcoating that, right? But standard outside of that, they've performed very well in the secondary. And, you've got Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins, who are a fantastic safety tandem. They serve very different roles. Marcus Williams being more of a patrolling safety, free safety that's able to guard the middle of the field or get sideline to sideline, while Malcolm Jenkins plays up against the line of scrimmage for you, plays up in the box, makes some nice plays in the run game, and also covers tight ends and, some of these slot guys very well. CJ Gardner-Johnson is just an absolute injection of energy on this defense. And you saw in the game against the Giants, you had a game in which both Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo, who's been outstanding so far this season, give up over 110 yards each, over 160 for Paulson Adebo in coverage. And so it was a bad game for the two of them. But overall, in terms of looking at where the Saints are strongest more consistently, if you take into account all 4 games where these things kind of average out, these bad performances, I think the secondary is their strength. Their biggest issue, their biggest concern is not getting pressure consistently against opposing quarterbacks. And with Taylor Heinicke, you have to pressure the kid. Yeah, not at all. No sacks at all in that game. And he didn't get much pressure. They didn't get much pressure in that fourth quarter and overtime, which is where the Saints went. They had through the first 3 quarters allowed 199 passing yards to Daniel Jones. In the fourth quarter and the one drive in overtime, 203, just in those a little bit over 15 minutes, 18 minutes or so. I mean, that was where this team really struggled. And so I think that hopefully for this team, they look at it as more of an anomaly than it is something that they are facing on a weekly basis, but they have to learn from it in order to make sure that's going to be the case.
So before we get your prediction, I have 2 questions, and it's revolving around Taylor Heinicke. The first thing is more so, how do you anticipate? Well, actually, I want to get your personal opinion first. So if you, from an outsider's perspective, is viewing a quarterback like Taylor Heinicke, because this question has been promoted and asked 1,000 times within the Washington fan base, because he is like an intriguing figure. If you were to look at Taylor Heinicke from an outsider's perspective, just your general observation, seeing some highlights or maybe seeing a couple games here and there, what would be your general, unbiased, blunt opinion on Taylor Heinicke? That's the first question. The second thing is just simply relating to the game. How do you anticipate the Saints playing or preparing against Taylor Heinicke?
Yeah, I mean, look, I look at Taylor Heinicke as a player that you don't sleep on, right? And I'll tell you this much: I would rather the Saints, and this is entirely biased, but I'd rather the Saints face Tyler Heinicke than face Ryan Fitzpatrick, because Ryan Fitzpatrick has demolished the Saints on a couple of different occasions in the past. For whatever reason,
Tampa Bay days,
Dennis Allen's defense. Say again.
The Tampa Bay days, huh?
Right. Yes, exactly. And for whatever reason, like that Dennis Allen defense versus Ryan Fitzpatrick was just all. And so the Saints play a lot of like cover 3 match, to where depending upon what the route concepts are doing, that dictates who's responsible for what receiver. So some will be responsible to players that are going outside, some will be responsible for players that are going inside. And then if they're going vertical, it switches from zone to man. So there are times where they might look like they're playing man-to-man on one side, look like they're playing zone on another side. So those types of looks can give younger quarterbacks some trouble. And so Taylor Heinicke, as fantastic as his highs have been so far over the time that he has been out there for Washington, not only this year, but also last season, that is the point to where I look at and say, okay, that's where the Saints might be able to confuse him a little bit, give him some things that he's not accustomed to seeing. And then particularly within the NFC East, where defense has been shaky, then I think that is part of what gives him a little bit of advantage. The other piece of it in terms of how to prepare for him, because to me, so just my general opinion of him is that he's a talented guy that has the ability to extend plays and be that kind of annoying quarterback
that's a really good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Annoying.
Yeah. He can get outside, and he's got smart receivers. I mean, Curtis Samuel, hopefully he's feeling well for Washington this week. And then you've got Terry McLaurin, who was like my wide receiver 1 in his class. I was all about this guy. And then of course Antonio Gibson. These are all guys that are very, very good, very athletic, very in tune with one another and their quarterback and their system. And that's what Ron Rivera does. He creates he does a very good job creating symbiosis amongst his units. And so they know, okay, the quarterback scrambling this way, I got to go this way, or whatever that might be. And so that is where Taylor Heinicke can get really, really annoying to defenses, is him extending those plays and the wide receivers knowing what to do to get open. So I think that for the Saints, what they have to be able to do is get pressure on the edge in such a way that it closes him in, effectively containing him so that he can extend plays, but then also can't get up the middle for, some free rushing yards and everything like that. So I think the pass rush becomes really important. The Saints will want to pressure him. I mean, he's got I want to make sure I check my notes right, 77.1 passer rating, down from 114.4 when he's under pressure, Taylor Heinicke does. So you want to get after him and get him rattled a little bit. And for the Saints, it's just about getting pressure. You have to lay hands on that guy too, and that's what they didn't do last week with Daniel Jones.
Absolutely, man. So again, Ross, appreciate your well, first off, the prediction, and then your plug talk, everything that you got going on and all that good stuff. So who wins and why, and then let the people know where they can find you, read you, hear from you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think this is a very evenly matched matchup between these two teams. I really do. I think the Saints are still in a position where they're trying to figure out their identity, and the Washington football team is tough where the Saints are weakest. They're tough in the front seven. The Saints are very weak on their offensive line right now. They're front seven of the defense. Yep. They're tough at their wide receiver core. This secondary just got rattled, and they're still a rookie starting. So I think this is effectively a pick 'em. I think the Saints are favored -1 going into this game. Now, if I remember correctly, you're the gambler.
Yeah, right now it's like -1.
Yeah. And so I could go either way on these teams, and I'll take the team that's at home in that case. That's what I would usually do. So I think the Washington football team has a really good chance to walk away with a win here. If they do, it's because they get pressure on Jameis Winston, and they are able to mitigate some of what Sean Payton looks to do with Taysom Hill. The Saints are going to try to keep this game on the ground. That's what they do on the road. They want to win on the road with the ground game and with their defense. They're out a running back right now. They're looking to sign another one. We'll have to see exactly how it is as they go through that. And they just moved on from Algic Rosas, who missed 3 straight kicks, but then they signed Cody Parkey to replace him. So not great. So if it comes down to a couple of points right now, I think the Saints are on the wrong side of that.
All right. Again, Ross, appreciate you. Let the people know again where they can find you, read you, hear from you, all that good stuff. I appreciate your time, big dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you so much for having me on, man. It was a pleasure to be here with both of y'all. Thanks for coming through, and thanks for allowing me to come through. Y'all can find me on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola, Nola. You can catch the LockedOn Saints podcast wherever it is that you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube as well, and some write-ups over at CanalStreetChronicles.com. Guys, I appreciate you, man.
Hey,
Absolutely,
likewise.
boss. You take care, my man.
Yeah, have a good one. Stay safe.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, we will be back after this ad break with the fellas, man. The full crew is here, and we're gonna go ahead and finish this episode out with a full preview and some opinions on the Week 4 game against the Falcons. So be right back after this. Boom. And we are back. All right. So that was Ross Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, of Canal Street Chronicles, Locked On Network, all that good stuff. Make sure y'all follow Ross Jackson. I actually need to go ahead and do that myself. I have a bad habit of reaching out to people and forgetting to follow them. So I'm actually going to do it right now. Again, like I said, we got the full crew. Dre's here. AJ's here. Fellas, how are y'all doing? Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, Dre?
What's good, man? I don't know why my video not showing, but it's whatever.
It sound like Dre in the bathroom.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with this thing today, man. I don't know.
I'm gonna say Dre over there acting a fool, bro. I get it, man. I get it. It's okay. But let's go ahead and get into this thing. So as we're getting ready to transition to the Saints game, first and foremost, let me actually be clear and clarify for everybody. This is the official preview for Trap or Dive. There is no show Thursday, so we just had to get that in today. But this is, again, we're recording this on Tuesday. We're streaming this on Tuesday. The fellas haven't really had a second opportunity. Dre hasn't, and then AJ hasn't had that opportunity to kind of put a lid on Week 4, the Atlanta game. So I'm gonna hand this and give them the opportunity, like we always do. Give them the floor. AJ, you haven't been here. You're gonna go ahead and get the first stab at this. Your opinion on Week 4, and anything that you kind of have on your mind in terms of the immediate future of the Washington football team.
I mean, in reference to Week 4, I think I'm still seeing that there's a schematic issue with Jack Del Rio's defense.
We see you too now, by the way, Dre. So you know.
Yeah. I think he's not changing it up enough. I think he's not running enough stunts on the front D-line. A couple times that they did, you seen Montez Sweat get home. Just overall, I still haven't seen the team under the Ron Rivera era play a full, complete game. It's unacceptable that they gave 3 touchdowns away to Cordell Patterson, especially that deep ball. You had literally 4 guys that were in the camera of that play. So that automatically tells you that there was a miscommunication issue within the secondary and also with the linebackers, because I seen Jamin Davis all the way upfield as well. I just don't really understand how it's so hard to scheme up for this defense and nothing has been changed yet. And I'm quite surprised that Jack Del Rio even still has a job. Maybe it's because him and Ron are buddies or whatever. But just overall, even with Taylor Heinicke, God, I hate this guy, honestly. Like, just my personal opinion. Like,
what did he do to you?
Exist.
I just don't like. I don't like how he plays quarterback. Like, I really don't like it. I feel like the fan base is so hungry for something at that position that a lot of people aren't realizing the flaws in his game. There's a reason why, he wasn't on the team for some time. There's a reason why. Didn't he go undrafted, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, undrafted.
Yeah, there's a reason for all of those things. I just feel like you're still seeing him not really go through his reads. Couple times I've seen him not use his football intelligence and run for the first down. He's sliding 2-3 yards before the first down marker when he actually has the opportunity to get the first. You're seeing wild passes like that touchdown to Terry McLaurin. I think it was maybe the third quarter? I can't really remember, where he's almost like pretty much on his knee and he just throws it up. No, that was like with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. he damn near almost gave the game away when it was 22-30.
Yeah, they was down. Yeah, they was down 8 for sure.
Yeah, like you can't do things like that. It's just, he got bailed out by Terry being able to come back to the ball, but that really should have been a pick. I just really am so frustrated with the quarterback position, and a lot of people are raving and trying to give him more time and not being realistic with who he is. And I think that's what's more frustrating for me. I still don't really like the way Scott Turner's calling games, but at the end of the day, they pulled out the victory in Atlanta, which I felt like should have been a win for Atlanta. I'm curious to see how they do against New Orleans Saints. Like I said, while we had Ross on, I'm nervous about how they're going to contain Taysom Hill. And I think it'll be a great matchup to see where does Jamin Davis, align with our views of a 19th overall pick going against Alvin Kamara, because they're definitely going to get Alvin Kamara involved in the passing game much more this week than last week.
Absolutely. Dre, you want to go ahead and get your final thoughts on week 4 and your early preview on the Saints?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Falcons game, the defense, obviously, we're still upset about that. And like I said, it's just, I'm done trying to make excuses and say, oh, well, maybe they'll wake up one day. Maybe they'll, be good next week. Because right now, I just don't see it. I mean, they got to show me to believe that at this point. Because right now, I don't see any quick fix to this defense. The only thing I can see happening that can slightly improve this defense is Jamin Davis improving and developing as the season goes on. Because that helps to shore up the middle of the field where a lot of your issues are. And I mean, I do have a little faith in him because we have seen him flash athletically in every game. Like, even if it's like for 1 or 2 plays, he's flashed in every game something athletically, but he just wasn't getting enough snaps. I mean, you're playing behind Bostic, who's getting most of the snaps to linebacker, and he was a weak spot. Yeah, the team likes his IQ, but he just didn't have the ability to do what you needed him to do on the field. I mean, it's just costly plays every week in the middle of the field. Not just him, but the safeties like Bobby McCain's big gaff on Cordell Patterson's touchdown. So it's just little things like that. I just don't know. I mean, I do feel like the defensive line is going to get better. I do feel like they'll eventually start getting home. But right now, offensive coordinators are just looking at us as, oh, we can just continue to do a quick passing game because they have no way to stop it because we're going to have guys open as soon as we snap the ball. So, I mean, that's something, when you look back at the Falcons game, it's just disappointing because it's like deja vu. Every week is the same story. Like, we are literally talking about the same thing. As far as the offense goes, I mean, they're not a great offense by any measure right now, but I think they're an improving offense. They definitely look better than they did last year. I mean, I definitely don't feel like AJ does about Heinicke.
I ain't got no hate for that, man. I ain't got no hate for that, man, at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Heinicke, he's doing okay for now. I mean, he's playing. I think he's playing pretty good football for what he is and what he's supposed to be. Like, I mean, if you would have told someone before the season that Heinicke was going to play all 4 games and have 8 touchdowns and 3 interceptions to start the year off and lead, over 2 30-point scoring games this season to start the season off, you would be like, oh, wow, he's actually playing pretty decent. Now, I understand he has his flaws. He definitely has his flaws. And sometimes they're going to come back and bite him in the ass. But right now, he's been showing more good than he's been showing bad so far. Now, is he the long-term answer? I don't know. But right now, that really doesn't matter because they don't have to answer that question right now. But is he the best available guy they can do right now? I mean, yes. I mean, because I don't think Kyle Allen could do what he's doing right now with this offense. Maybe something slightly lower, but I think Heinicke's the best guy for the job right now. And he's done nothing to say, he should be benched or anything right now.
So let's have I asked this question on Twitter, and I guess I'll flip it to you all as well. It's still revolving around Heinicke. I do have some comments about Rivera too. So I guess we'll be quick with the Heinicke thing, and then we could transition to Rivera because I have some things that I'm not necessarily sold on, like how he's operating right now. But with Taylor Heinicke, what was y'all opinion prior to week 1, and then seeing his level of production, whatever you perceive it to be, since we have AJ in here, whatever you perceive it to be, seeing his level of production to this point of the season heading into week 5, has your perspective or opinion changed from prior to week 1 to right now today. I'm gonna go ahead and get this one to Dre first, and then AJ, let me know what you think.
My opinion before the season was I thought that he could do pretty much what Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to do. And my opinion now is pretty much the same. I mean, I think this is what they wanted Ryan Fitzpatrick to be when they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, Heinicke's, matter of fact, I mean, we're being honest here. The 2 wins we have, he's a major part of those 2 wins, because we can't say the defense had a major part in those 2 wins. The defense hasn't done anything all season to be a part of anything but a losing. So he's had a major part in 2 wins so far this season. I mean, he's getting the ball to Terry like he should. Like the win against the Giants, I think Terry had like 13 or 14 targets. He had 13 targets against the Falcons, and that means they're looking to get their best playmaker the ball, and he is getting the ball. He's making plays, and he's getting the recognition he deserves nationally, and you have to give Taylor some credit for that, because Taylor's looking for him, and Taylor is finding him. So, I mean, yeah, Terry has bailed him out maybe on a couple of throws, but what great wide receiver doesn't bail their quarterback out from time to time? So, you know, I think he's doing exactly what they would have wanted Ryan Fitzpatrick to do up until this point, and that was my opinion before the season.
AJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think it hasn't changed for me personally. I think he's just another guy. I think sometimes we're getting enamored with the fact that he's making plays with his feet. But, I mean, if you look around the league, most of the guys that are starting at quarterback can do the same exact thing at this point. You know, there's not too many stationary guys like the Tom Brady's or, you know, the Phillip Rivers or Ben Roethlisberger's back in the day. Most of these guys can't create on the go. You know, I think with Taylor having to step in and being the starter, it's affected the offense being able to go downfield more. That's the one thing that Ryan Fitzpatrick could do. He could push the ball downfield more. I don't feel like they're doing that with Taylor. I think he's like kind of locking in on one guy, one read systems pretty much at the time. And looking for those checkdowns, and you know, we're not really seeing the explosiveness of the Deante Browns that we've heard about, been raved about. Curtis Samuel even coming back this week. We didn't see anybody going deep. We didn't see Curtis Samuel go deep. We didn't really see Terry go deep, and I think that's also due to the fact that he doesn't have the best arm strength. There was a particular play, I can't remember because I was actually at the Colts and Miami Dolphins game, which was trash, by the way.
Yeah, it was. But shout out to them Colts covering though.
Yep.
But I was watching. It was a certain play. I want to say it was a 3rd down, and one of the receivers ran a comeback route on the right side of the sideline, and you could just see that that's the reason why they talk about the lack of arm strength. He could not get the ball there. I tweeted about it, and it's just you know, he is who he is. And I guess like Dre said, you really can't do anything about it at this point because they're not going to bring in reinforcements to challenge him. I just would think with Taylor being familiar with Scott Turner so much in this playbook, even before his tenure with Washington, that it would be opened up a little bit more. I think I'm looking for a little bit more trickery or more utilization of the speed that you do have at wide receiver, especially when you bring Curtis Samuel into the fold. I'm just not seeing that yet. And, you know, he is who he is.
Well, to be fair, hold on, but before you go, Jamal, with Curtis Samuel, I don't think they wanted to put too much on his plate last game. I don't even think he got that many snaps. He was on a snap count, and they were using him in a gadget type of sense, like he was running behind the line of scrimmage a lot of times, and they was using him in those short yardage situations. But I think the more he plays, maybe you will get to see him go downfield a little bit more. But that's just my thought on Curtis Samuel.
I mean, but I would think if you're going to use him in the gadget way more than likely, it'd probably be safer and healthier for him to run downfield rather than behind the line of scrimmage where people are going to be keying on you as soon as you hike the ball. So I don't know. I'm just intrigued to see what they do, you know, with Curtis back into the fold. I realized he was on a limited play count, but still you had Deante Brown, who we have not seen use his speed yet.
Well, he can't separate. That's his issue right now.
That's where I was going to. That's where I was going to next, Dre. It wasn't even about Taylor. It's just like you had mentioned Deante, AJ, and this actually kind of rolls into the issue that I have with Ron Rivera right now. I said this yesterday, and I want to reiterate. I want to preface what I'm about to tell you all, just so you all know. I am not advocating for Cam Sims to have more snaps than De'Ami Brown. We're prefacing that right now. I'm not advocating for that. But here's the issue that I have with how things are being handled on the offensive side when we know for a fact that Terry McLaurin needs help. We know it. Ron Rivera, Scott Turner, Drew Terrell, all of these guys have said that they want to incorporate Cam Sims more into the offense. They said that out of their mouths that they want to incorporate Cam Sims more into the offense. He's had less than 9 snaps, because I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head. He's had less than 9 snaps in 3 of the 4 games. Less than 9 snaps. And we can't even validate or quantify if all of those were passing routes or routes that he ran. Like, those could have been run plays that he was in the game for. So, and the most that he got was in the Buffalo Bills game where it was a blowout. That's the most snaps that he got in the game, was a Buffalo Bills game where it was a blowout. And then as soon as Curtis Samuel comes back, he's back down to like 5. He got like 5 or 6 snaps against the Atlanta Falcons. My issue is not necessarily with like that portion, but it's the lip service that Ron Rivera has gave to us multiple times. And I'm starting to wonder, not necessarily like, I'm gonna just say it, fuck it. I don't know if we should be worried about or thinking about anything or believing anything that man is saying out of his mouth right now, because there's things that has also transpired on the defensive side of the football and in special teams where he mentioned Dustin Hopkins, and he is lying through his teeth telling us that he has faith and that he's the kicker. Dre, AJ, we talked about this. We are all sides away from being 0-3 heading into the Atlanta game. We are all sides away from being 0-3, and then the man, we wouldn't even be down heading into the game-winning drive. It would be 30-30 when we have the ball because he missed 2 extra points. Like, he's sticking with these guys. He's kind of telling us some things, man, that's like sticking to his guns, dying on hills that he doesn't have to die on, and also lying to us because the actions aren't meeting. The actions aren't meeting the words. Fellas, I'm a little concerned with how things kind of have transpired to this point. He said some things last year as well. We know the Dwayne Haskins story. We know what he said in the offseason, how he talking about he wish he had a competition. All these things. I'm just saying, I'm not like jumping ship with Ron Rivera. I'm just calling out and trying to hold accountability. I think that there's something up here just in the sense of him being able to manage what he says out of his mouth and being actionable towards the things that he's talking about.
I mean, I think there should be some concern with Ron Rivera. You know, you look at his tenure in Carolina, how it all unfolded towards the end, the past couple of years. And you even watch what he's done in his tenure with Washington from, you know, the 5 days before the season opener cut of Adrian Peterson over Peyton Barber. You see all these different type of moves that don't make sense to you, like the whole Trent Williams debacle. Trent Williams wanted to stay here. Like, I personally had a conversation with Trent, you know, but Ron Rivera was being stubborn. Okay, the Quinn Dunbar thing, I get moving on from him. He wanted a new deal. But you see a lot of things that happen from even the Dwayne Haskins thing, you know, the quarterback competition, to even how they handled this offseason with getting a quarterback. You know, look at, you know, how aggressive the Rams got in getting Matt Stafford, and look at their record and the success that they've had already early in the season. If you go get an elite type of quarterback like that, you put your team in a whole new space. But instead, you fucked up on all the options that you could have went and got, whether it be Matt Stafford. You could have probably even pursued Jameis Winston a little bit harder with more money. Instead, you had to settle with Ryan Fitzpatrick. That blew up in your face week 1. We already knew it wasn't a real competition because you signed that man to a 1-year deal, $10 million. So there's no way in hell that there can be a legit quarterback competition when you do something of that nature. He gets hurt. Now you have the result back to Taylor Heinicke. Then we also went and signed one of your former players that you didn't even utilize too well in Carolina, and Curtis Samuel, to bring here and give him a bunch of money. He can't play until now week 4. So it's just a lot of things that you got to be cautious with Ron Rivera. And a lot of stuff that he says doesn't make sense to me either. I'm almost like, yo, if this season doesn't go right, you may see a change, because I don't understand why you would necessarily, if you're not a winning team, why would you bring this man back and allow him to go and either draft a new quarterback or go and try to get an elite quarterback in the offseason? I know I'm thinking far in advance, but to me, I'm kind of seeing why Carolina had to sever ties with Ron Rivera. And I think he also hasn't realized he's not in the Charlotte market no more. You're in Washington, D.C. There's a big-time franchise. And everything that you say, the media and the fan base is going to hold you accountable to. You can't get rid of guys like Morgan Moses when you really didn't need to. You created a need that you didn't even have to do right there. Then you had to use your second-round pick to go draft a project tackle in Sam Cosmi, when you probably could have read up on two linebackers that you desperately need. You could have got Jamin Davis and JOK, who's balling in Cleveland. So it's just like, I think he has too much power, and it's weird because he didn't have that type of power in Carolina, but Daniel Snyder gave him all this power to bring in all his buddies. If you look around the team, you look around the coaching staff, everything is literally Carolina based. Even from the office executives, it's all Carolina based. And he didn't win over there. The past couple of years he had over there, he wasn't doing good. So I mean, Jamal, I'm right there with you, man. I really don't know what's going on with him. I think it's kind of alarming when you say that you want to get guys involved, and then we're not seeing these guys get involved, and we're not seeing people get held accountable. Like Dustin Hopkins, he can't keep missing kicks, bro. You can't keep doing that, because, like you said, those extra points or these field goals you're missing, those are points that now the team has to make up for, and you're putting them in bad situations. Instead of it being 22-30, it could have been a completely different score where, they could have been in a better position and not have to feel like their back is against the wall. So yeah, I'm concerned about it, and I think the fan base should be too, because they probably should be winless right now.
Great.
Ron, I do have my issues with him as far as, like I said, Dustin Hopkins has no business being on this team anymore. I mean, we've been talking about that since the offseason, at least bring in some kicker competition. But I don't know what it is about him. I mean, I feel like every coaching staff looks at Dustin Hopkins as a guy as, if we let him go, he's going to blow up somewhere else, like Graham Gano did. We let him go, and he's now one of the best kickers in the NFL. But with Hopkins, he's costing you so much. I mean, he's cost you playoff spots before in the past, and now he's damn near costing you games this season. Like you said, he's putting the offense in a bad position. So that right there, I don't get, and I don't get the Bostic loyalty. So that's some of the things that Ron he gets me with. Like, he'll have loyalty to certain guys, and these guys are usually the do right guys. These are the guys that I guess they call the lunch pail guys, like Bostic. He loves guys like those, so he's going to have loyalty to guys like that, and I think that's going to always be frustrating as long as he's the coach. But other than that, I'm not at the point where I'm super frustrated with him. I mean, we're not even through year two. I mean, we're 4 games into year two. We're coming off a season where we, lucked into or backed into a division win. So, like I said, right now, 4 games into year two, 2-2 right now. I think our record is what it's supposed to be right now. I mean, it could be one way or the other, however you want to discuss it. But we're 2-2 right now, and that's probably where we should be with our schedule. And we're just going to take it one game at a time. I mean, I think I'll reevaluate where I am with him after year 2, but I always try to give coaches that benefit of the doubt. Like I did it with Jake Gruden. I gave him a couple of years. I said, all right. Then after a while, I was through with him. I was like, all right, okay, I'm over Jake Gruden. But I gave him benefit of the doubt for a couple of years, and that was that. So I'll do the same with Ron, and I'll see where we are. But see, the thing is too, is that the reason why we will probably have to hire a Ron Rivera is because our organization was so fucked up from the get-go with Dan Snyder and them. So you look at Ron Rivera as a guy that, he's a no-nonsense guy, and that's probably why they gave him the power, because Dan Snyder couldn't have the power anymore. You were getting rid of Bruce Allen, and then so what are you going to do? You're going to have Dan, preside over Ron. Ron was going to come in with Dan presiding over him, because that was the issue before with everyone else, is that Dan is always meddling. So that's why I think he got that power here. And I think his job was bigger than just wins and losses to come out the gate. I mean, of course, wins and losses are huge, but his job was to turn around a culture and make this organization, make this organization just look different and have a different perception, because the perception was fucked up for years here. So, like I said, I'll reevaluate my stance on him after a year or so.
But now we got the feds knocking at the door too under Ron Rivera. So it's like, and that's his guy that he brought in. So
trapping out ass burn.
but it's like at some point we have to look at it and like realize like, yeah, it's year 2, but this team looks like it took a step back big time. And they actually had training camp this year. They had more face-to-face time, and that shouldn't happen. You know, like whether you're rocking with Fitzpatrick or Heinicke, the defense should be sharp. Like hands down, the defense should be sharper. The offense, they couldn't do any worse than what they did last year. Honestly, it's still not the best, but they're better.
Like, they're
better. They're better now. But at the end of the day, they were ranked 30th last year in offense. Yeah. So I mean, you can't get much worse. You feel me? So it's just, I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical of where things are going with Ron Rivera. Just because, like I said, since he's been here, I have not seen a complete game on both sides of the ball yet. And the schedule is only going to get tougher. Like you playing New Orleans, you're playing the Packers. I think after the Packers, the Chiefs.
No, Chiefs is after Saints.
Oh damn! Yeah, it is Chiefs.
Yeah,
Saints, Chiefs. Either
then Packers.
Okay.
No, it's Packers right after that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is gonna get real ugly. If we thought that Buffalo game was bad, can you imagine Tyreek Hill running all through the secondary? It's gonna get ugly. Yeah, we're not probably expecting to win that game, but it's very telling because we're looking at this team as being a playoff contender. And if you can't play with the big boys, then we got an issue. You're just gonna be getting these couple wins against these bad teams where they're fucking up and losing their own games. Then we have issues.
That's fair, man. So first and foremost, everybody that's listening, everybody that's watching, this is why I do multiple episodes per week, because shit like this is worth talking about. But this is the preview show. We gotta do a little bit more previewing. We'll spend 10 more minutes on this episode, and we'll get up out of here. Let's go ahead and turn to the Saints game a little bit more in depth here. On the offensive side of the football for Washington, Ross mentioned, AJ, that believe it or not, for those who look at the statistics, the secondary is still the strong suit of the New Orleans Saints defense. And we obviously know going into this game, Taylor Heinicke is in the offense, and Scott Turner. Oh my God. Scott Turner has had he's had moments where they've shined, but then at the same time, like from a play calling standpoint, sometimes things aren't in sync, and kind of gets in their way on that end too. Fellas, I'll kick it off with you all. Like the best way to approach this Saints defense is what? And I'm gonna go ahead and start with you, AJ. What do you think is going to be that best approach?
I think the best approach is to run the ball and feed your playmakers, as we've seen in the 2 wins that Washington has had. Targeting Terry McLaurin has led to W's. Getting him involved early in the game and keeping him involved throughout the game is gonna lead to more than likely having a win. But I think also developing the run so you can play off the play action a little bit more is going to be necessary and key to them being progressive on offense on Sunday. You're going to have Cosme having to try to stop Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan is no joke. And we definitely have seen Cosme bullied by Jordan Boulder. I look at those guys being in the same playing field as one another at DN. I just think that you need to feed Gibson the ball a little bit more and get McKissick involved in the passing game more too, and Gibson. Because I even feel like the same way you feel like the snap count has been low for Cam Sims, I feel like they've been trying to get away from J.D. McKissick as well. Like,
yes, we talked about that, man.
It definitely just, I don't know what's going on. But at the end of the day, I think the keys is running the ball, being successful with that. The offensive line has been great with getting some push, and then getting Terry involved in the game from the jump, not waiting until you're down a bunch of points to start feeding him the ball, but go into your first 15 scripted to get Terry the ball early.
Dre?
I think you have to attack the Saints with big plays this week. I watched a bit of the Giants and Saints game last week, and Daniel Jones lit them up. Like, Daniel Jones was lighting New Orleans up all game. And I think you could do the same to that defense. I mean, they're a good defense. Like I said, Jordan, he's a hell of a player. They got Marshawn Lattimore at cornerback, but you still have to attack them, I think, with big plays. The chunk yards is cool too, but I want to see some explosiveness this week. I want to see Curtis Samuel get more snaps this week. I want to see him get more involved in the offense. Like I said, he had 3 of his 4 catches last week were 4 first downs. So that's a positive sign. So the more he plays, I think you'll see the offense open up a bit more with him. And obviously get Antonio Gibson involved more. I mean, Antonio Gibson, he's looked good whenever he's run the ball. I mean, he runs the ball about 14 times a game, but he's averaging close to 5 yards a carry, I think. So you want to get him involved. You want to get him some more touches. Of course, keep getting JD the ball. Like, JD is a beast, man. Like, when he's checked down in those flats, I mean, he can always make something happen. So that's somebody you want to see. It's going to hurt a bit without Logan Thomas this week. So you're looking for Ricky Seals-Jones to show some consistency this week with his hands. He dropped a couple balls last week. John Bates, he may play a bigger role this week. The rookie tight end we have, he had a key block on DeAndre Carter's kickoff return. So it'll be interesting to see how – Yes, he did. And then, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how they use him on offense this week, whether he's going to be used more as a blocker or if he's going to be used in the passing game. Ron actually mentioned in his presser this week that John Bates is a very good route runner. So you may get to see him in the offense catching a couple of passes this week. So I think you have to attack them first with the big plays this week.
Defensively, for Washington's defense, I think this is going to take 10 hours to talk about, but let's try and condense it as best as we can. AJ made a great point, man. I'm kind of nervous about Taysom, man. When you talk about versatile weapons, but also people who can kind of maneuver as that 11th man that you got to take into account. Like, I don't know how many snaps he'll see at the quarterback position itself, but just having having that person who can be a difference maker from any standpoint of that offense is going to be dangerous. And then you have on top of that Alvin Kamara. This offense doesn't have that many weapons right now, but they have 2 top tier weapons, and that's kind of the issue that Washington is facing this week. Defensively, what'll be some keys for Washington's defense to at least manage, man, because we know, like, I tell people all the time now, believe your eyes. The defense is some shit. It ain't good. Like, it ain't gonna get no better right now. But how can they manage and try to stay in the game from that side of the ball?
Well, they can help themselves out by forcing some turnovers this week. I mean, I think the defense has literally forced 1 turnover all year. We're listed with 2 turnovers, but I think they're counting that kickoff that Dustin Hopkins recovered in the Buffalo games a turnover. That's not a defensive turnover. So we haven't forced a turnover since William Jackson's interception in the Chargers game. So that's something that they can help themselves with. In this game, especially against Jameis Winston, who's known to turn the ball over. He will give it up. If you put some pressure on him, he'll give it up. So you have to do that. And I think once you start doing that as a defense, maybe you'll feel like you could play. Maybe you'll feel like you're getting some momentum. And that's going to help the offense out significantly. Like, as much as we talk about what the offense can do, the offense is operating every week without getting any kind of flip on field position. Like, they're starting drives every time on the 30 and 20 yard line, on their own 30 and 20 yard line. They're not getting help from the defense from getting short field position on turnovers like other teams around the league do, like the other great defenses do. So that's something the defense can help themselves out with. And the first and foremost is forcing New Orleans to turn the ball over, make them uncomfortable, make a quarterback uncomfortable this year. We haven't seen one quarterback. We haven't seen one quarterback get uncomfortable all year. So but like I said, the defensive line, I mean, they seem like, people keep saying they're close, they're pressuring. That's cool and all, but I need to see impactful pressures. I need to see the quarterbacks uncomfortable. So this is where it starts. Maybe this week you make Jameis Winston uncomfortable, you force a couple turnovers, and maybe you feel good about yourself, and that's how you can get the defense jump started.
So before you go, AJ, BQC mentioned, I don't know why I didn't say this earlier, but I do remember you from I do know you from Twitter, not remember you. But Dre tweeted it the other day, but let the offense get the ball first. That's also something. I mean, look, Washington has this terrible habit. I think we've given the ball to the offense, to the opposing team's offense, each of those 4 games, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah, each of those 4. You gotta try and shake things up a little bit different, man. You don't if it's in your power, if you win the coin toss and you have that option, I agree. Like, change it up. Cause that shit ain't working. Don't put yourself in a deficit. They 0 for 4.
Right.
They 0 for 4 giving up points. Don't put yourself in that deficit. Go ahead.
And not only that, when we're doing that, when we're giving the other team the ball first each game, it's one thing if your defense is setting the tone in the game and they're forcing 3 and outs, but they're on the field for 8 minutes at a time, and then by that time you're trotting the offense on the field. The first quarter's almost over. They almost forgot they're in the game. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe change it up this week. Have the offense set the tone in the game. Maybe the offense goes out and gets a score, and maybe the defense feels good, and you're at home, so the crowd's going to be behind you. Switch it up.
So Washington's been winning the kickoffs and deferring.
Yeah, a lot of times they asked Ron about that too, and he mentioned, he gave one of his politician answers.
That's fucking wild. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think defensively, I really don't know what to expect at this point. I'm just happy that Jamin Davis is now going to get to, show some of his athleticism. What better way to make your starting debut against Alvin Kamara, one of the best running backs out of the backfield. And that is one of the main reasons why we drafted Jamin Davis, was to see his coverage skills and being able to defend guys like Alvin Kamara. So I think that's where everything kind of starts. But overall, just play disciplined football. Play your assignments, because Sean Payton is definitely going to scheme up guys to be open. But if you're not disciplined, you're definitely going to get beat deep with Jameis Winston back there. He loves the deep ball, and that's one of his better passes. So if you're not disciplined overall in that aspect of coverage, and then, like I mentioned while we had Ross on, with Taysom Hill back there being able to run the read option and also being able to throw out of these different packages, whether it be him lined up at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, you just never know what Sean Payton is going to dial up. But you need to just trust your eyes and the game film that you are studying. Because at the end of the day, if you go out there and you just freelancing, you're going to get beat. And that's what's happening with a lot of these plays where, they're giving up these big time touchdowns. They're freelancing. They're not being disciplined. So, yeah, I think the key thing is just going to be being disciplined. And let's just see what Jamin Davis does against Alvin Kamara in pass coverage.
All right, fellas. We'll go a little bit more in depth with these on the preview, game day preview, and talk about some things that we couldn't cover today. But with that being said, that's going to wrap up the Tuesday weekday pregame show. But fellas, what is going to be your final score and MVP for this game?
What, AJ?
I'd probably say final score would probably be 28-17 Saints. I think MVP of the game is going to be Taysom Hill.
Okay. Dre?
I think we win a shootout. I think it's going to be 31-27. We win. MVP, I think this is the game Antonio Gibson really gets out on, so I'm going with him as the MVP.
Hey, man, look, if there's one thing that I'm proud of y'all on, is the fact that y'all recognize that Washington ain't going to keep no team under 25 points. So,
no.
So we know it's going to be a high-scoring game regardless on one side of the ball at least. For me, man, I'm going to go, this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. I'm a back the home team and put my faith in these guys. If I'm being unbiased, we're not gonna like the answer, but I'm gonna put my faith in these guys and say that they find a way to get the dub. It's definitely gonna be a high scoring game. I'm thinking maybe even to the point where it's like close. I'm gonna say 29-26 Washington. And the MVP is probably gonna end up oh my lord. It may end up being Terry McLaurin again. Like it may very well end up being Terry McLaurin. So either him or Curtis Samuel. So it's gonna be one of those guys, in my opinion. But I will say that the defense finds a way to get a turnover, bro. Hey, House, what's going on? He said we're gonna have to score 40 this week to win. You ain't lying, bro. We got to score a lot of points. It is what it is. House, so we just wrapping up. We're going to get up out of here, but stay tuned for the playback. We had Ross Jackson on to start the stream, and then we just wrapped it up with us three. So with that being said, everybody, stay tuned also for those who are listening to the podcast for the Ante Up Consultants official pick for the New Orleans Saints and Washington football team week 5 game. So far, Ante Up is split. They're 500, 2-2 so far. But trust me, I trust these guys. They do a lot of good work, man, with your gambling needs and all that stuff, the insight, analysis, all that good things, man. Rock with Ante Up Consulting. You can find them up on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, Ante Up Consulting. So for those who are listening to the podcast or even watching on YouTube, stay tuned for that official pick of the week 5 game. With that being said, we're out of here, man. We're out of here. Appreciate AJ checking in. And he'll be back again on Sunday as well. The fellas will be back on Sunday. Y'all boys be safe. Y'all ladies be safe out there too if y'all watching. T, I'm sure you watching out there somewhere. But yeah, we out of here. Peace.
This week's Washington football team odds are presented by Ante Up Consulting. We have the best odds and wager plays in the DMV. This week, Washington football team 2-point underdogs at home versus the Saints. I'm going to back the Saints in this one, minus the 2 points. Washington football team under head coach Rivera, just 7-7 against the spread, non-division games, while the Saints 16-3 against the spread in the month of October since 2016. Sean Payton 53-34 against the spread after a loss as a head coach. And the Saints, I know they struggle passing the ball, 144 passing yards per game, but the Washington football team defense ranks 29th in opposing passing yards per game. We saw the Falcons in a similar role last week, and they were able to get yards in the air. So I'm going to back the Saints minus the 2 points, like it up to 2.5. Lay the points.
Whole hard in the trenches, ask a nigga what he benching, triple digits, nigga. Don't forget to